Welcome to another episode of Mad in Love. Today we have a special treat for our listeners. Joining us are Chuck and Ashley Elliott, a dynamic duo renowned for their contributions as content creators with impressive collaborations like YouVersion and Right Now Media. With their extensive experience and certification in psychoeducational programs, they've provided invaluable insights for individuals building relational success. Beyond this, Chuck gracefully serves, I'll have to talk about that gracefully word, but anyway, I'm assuming that's true. He gracefully serves as pastor at Bethel Church in Evansville, Indiana, and Ashley's expertise shines through in her role as a licensed counselor at, I tried to pronounce this word, Ashley, I'm going to try it, Auxilium. Did I get it?
Nailed it.
Wow. Okay. Anyway, Auxilium Psychological Services is not just about their titles, but the depth of experience and knowledge they bring with them. We're eager to dive into their insights. So we are excited. You've written a book. I've done a little bit of reading about it. You have a bunch of great quotations, which I'm going to bring up a couple of them. But tell us about writing this book. And it kind of makes me sad thinking about the title a little bit, because I think that's part of what you're writing about. I used to be and what I can become in the future. But tell us about the book and your story.
I used to be blank, where we give people the opportunity to fill in the blank. Yeah. They could fill it in by saying, I used to be married, employed, there used to be a son or a daughter, whatever their identity shift has happened, then they can navigate that loss. And so we use the fill in the blank prompt throughout the book and help people to overcome the negative space that they're in and try to find their path toward a positive space, one that's filled with hope. A lot of times whenever we go through identity changes, especially regarding loss, we end up feeling a little bit overwhelmed and get stuck.
Yeah, because people find that whenever they lose somebody or something they really loved, really cared about, that was part of who they were. So you lose that and you're wondering, okay, who am I now? If I'm not married, if I'm not employed, if I'm not a parent, if I'm not a son or a grandson, I'm not a neighbor to my best friends. Who am I now? What do I put in that void? And it can almost be paralyzing and you don't know how to navigate forward.
And in the book, we give people a lot of pastoral and counseling exercises that are super practical for them to work through. So it's a little bit like a counseling session, a little bit like a private workbook type thing, even though it's not a workbook, but there's some of those elements where we're having people think through their identity shift, think through the way that they're impacted at work, at home, and all of their relationships regarding this identity shift that they've faced.
You bring, I thought I was going to wait for a little bit to share this, one of your quotes, but I think it's appropriate right now. You wrote this, I got to look down here. Our strongest emotions reveal our deepest values. If we've moved to a negative space, it's because we first were in a positive space. We valued something and it was threatened. Remember writing that? You wrote that.
Yeah.
Tell us about, it kind of moves me, Chuck and Ashley. Like, I've already begun applying that. Like, why am I upset about that? Oh, I'm upset because something I deeply value was threatened. And just having that paradigm, I only practiced it this morning, to be honest with you, but I did practice it. Like,
that's awesome.
Yeah, I thought about this, that my desire for privacy and quietude, is quietude a word? I think it should be a word.
It is right now. You just made it.
Okay, my value of having quietude and privacy, Katie doesn't know this, has been threatened by my wife wanting a second pug. Katie's going to scream. Oh, Katie's going to scream. Yeah. Anyway, and it's a joyous time, but it's going to come home in the next 4 hours. That may seem like small stuff to people, but my value of quietude and privacy and space is being threatened. And I was practicing this, like, why do I feel threatened? Well, because I value, okay, anyway.
No, that's a great example.
Is it?
Yes, fantastic. You nailed it.
Well, I think one of the things that I've noticed, we say in the front of the book, it's for large and small losses. If we can understand the small things, the small ways that our values are threatened and how we react, then we can prepare ourselves so that whenever we do face a larger loss, we'll have some of that skill already built up. So as you're processing and you say, okay, now I know there's some value that I have, I can meet that need in a healthier way. So you don't need to go in there and be angry at your wife, like, yeah, you got this pug. You knew I didn't really want it. That's how we sometimes feel. But we go,
how did you read my mind?
But instead, we can say, all right, I need to prioritize how I'm going to have some quiet. So there needs to be a space where maybe the dogs are separated, or at a time of day where you can say, I'm going to still meet this need in a healthy way. And when we meet our needs, then we find that we're healthier and we don't have those like passive aggressive comments or the negative space behavior that none of us like, right? I don't want to complain to Chuck or be grouchy, but there is some sort of struggle that's going on. There is a value that has been threatened whenever we get in that negative space.
You guys, this is really huge stuff. This principle, I mean, if we don't unpack anything else, this principle, I think, it's a powerful principle, right? What you just counseled me. Thank you, by the way. If I take care of myself in a healthy way, then I won't be gurgling around. I won't be sloshing around inside and come out in a passive aggressive way against my wife or whatever. But is that the value of this quote here? Our strongest emotions reveal our deepest values. And if we have a negative space because we were first in a positive space, we valued something and it was threatened. And so we need to attend to the threat and kind of nurture ourselves. Is that kind of the point?
Absolutely. And I like that you described what a negative space was. You said that you were kind of wallowing or gurgling. I think that was the term that you used.
Yeah.
You're just kind of there, but you're not really making progress.
Oh, man.
We lose something and we just feel angry about it. And we feel like we're bad for feeling angry. So we just shut down the anger instead of being curious about what's being violated that we care about. Because you're not a bad person because you value your quiet time and the things that you care about. That doesn't make you bad. But the thing is, we often don't think about what's underneath the anger, what's underneath the frustration, and it gives us something to work on when we do that. Because if you just ignore the anger, then you're going to feel like a victim and you might lash out. But if you actually get underneath it, then you can do something with it. Ask for what you want. And what we say is you get current with your partner, your spouse, whatever relationship it might be. You put it on the table. You can do something with it. And then you can navigate what does it look like to move forward. And this could be on a big situation, a smaller situation. It could be about getting another pug. It could be about somebody doing something that broke trust in the relationship.
Say some more about getting current. You just... Yeah, that was really neat. Say some more about that. Getting current with your mate or with others.
Yeah, for sure. Ashley and I talk about getting current. And what that means is there aren't issues that aren't being discussed and they're not on the table. Does it mean everything's perfect between you and you agree about everything 100%? That's not what it means. It means that if there is some sort of dissonance, if there is some sort of discomfort, some sort of frustration, some sort of disagreement that you're dealing with, you know what it is and you know that it's on the table. It doesn't mean that you've dotted all the I's and crossed all the T's on negotiating what it looks like or coming to an agreement, but you're not holding back in the relationship. Because many times when you're not proud of what you've done or you're frustrated with your partner and what they've done, you hold back and you can build resentment and distance become prevalent. So if you will deal with it and get current, then you can make a game plan.
And for us, we see couples, they sometimes will play relationship games. Like, well, you didn't tell me when you were mad, so I'm not going to tell you. I'm going to make you figure out what it was that you did. And that just creates distance in the relationship. So whenever I know that I'm upset about something, I need to make sure that, I tell him in some way, hopefully a positive space, right?
That sounds nice. Yeah, let's do that. Tell him.
But sometimes we say, he won't care, right? That's a negative space talking. Like, oh, I've tried and nothing worked. Oh, that's a negative space talking. And I do this too, right? We're not immune to it just because we wrote the content, right? We know that we have these patterns and habits as humans, and we have to work to say, okay, my tendency is to want to withdraw and not tell you what I'm really mad about. And so I'm going to try to remember, we're not current right now. There's distance, and it's because I haven't told you that thing I'm upset about. And so again, we didn't coin the term get current. It was in one of the marriage education workshops. And we've looked for years to try to figure out who to give credit to. And so we just say it's anonymous at this point. If someone knows who it is, we're happy to give them credit.
Absolutely.
Say some more. Let's make sure our listeners are real clear. I'm going to make sure I'm clear on negative and positive space. You're using those terms a lot. So is a negative space when I'm if I'm gurgling, if I'm, I got a little bit of negative space going. If that's the definition, I got a little bit of, I'm not resentful, but I'm anxious. I'm, how is this going to play out? Is that negative space?
You know what? You're really good at this. It's almost like you've been doing this for a long time and you're really smart and have a lot of education in it. It's almost like you just picked this stuff up really quick. You're killing it, man. Really good. I'll let Ashley explain it a little bit more to the doctor.
I'm an airline pilot in my full-time job, and I practice a psychologist is just a side hustle I have.
Just a side hustle. Well, I'm glad it's going well for you. Yeah, but I'll let Ashley fill you in on switch theory a little bit.
Okay, so we called moving back and forth between a positive and negative space switch theory. So we switch
theory. Okay.
back and forth between the positive space with positive thoughts, feelings, and behavior.
Yeah, and then you have a negative space with negative thoughts, feelings, and behavior.
And though it's normal to go back and forth between the positive and negative space, typically where we're doing a lot of counseling and coaching is in that negative space when people get stuck. This is where depression, anxiety really brews. But it's normal for us to go back and forth between the positive and negative space each day with our marriage or our kids or work. Right? None of us can stay in a positive space. But how it's different from a mood, like a negative mood, is that it is often deeper. And so one of the things we've been exploring lately is just what all is comprised in the negative space, because there are the thoughts, the feelings, the behavior, but underneath are those values, those beliefs. And sometimes we get stuck kind of lying to ourselves, and we tell ourselves like, God doesn't really care. He's still God, but he doesn't really care. And so that's a negative space thought that begins to inform our beliefs and our values. And so like, well, if God cared, then he would let me know what I should do. And so I'm not going to go to church. And so then we're like, wait, I did value church, but now I'm in this negative space and it's starting to inform the way that I act out my life. And so we found it really, really helpful for people to understand their positive and negative space patterns. When I'm familiar with my patterns, I can go, oh, it's less personal. It's less attaching to my identity. It is more of a negative space thing. And I go, okay, here I am again. I believe some lies in a negative space. And so I've got to remind myself of the truth. I've got to remind myself that this is just a space I'm in. And if I can get out, I will think differently. And so that's for us what's been really helpful in the clients that we work with.
And we see it as you're looking through a lens. So if you were wearing some glasses, you look at things through a negative space or a positive space. And in the negative space, you're really not feeling hopeful. You don't see a way out of this situation. You're looking at yourself in a negative way. You're looking at your situation, your partner, other relationships. And what we've really found is when you're in a negative space, it's not isolated to one issue. A lot of times it transfers over. Like if you're in a negative space at work, David, you know what happens? Sometimes you get in a negative space at home. And it brings back and forth and back and forth. We'd like to think that we can compartmentalize things and just be frustrated with our spouse, and it's not going to come over on our kids or our coworkers or whatever it might be, or the person in traffic. But we're not that good. We're not that smart.
I want you to still say a little bit more about negative space and positive space. Is negative space kind of having a negative view towards things like, grousing and the anxiety, concern, disappointment, anger, and positive space being more confident and having a positive impact on the relationship? I'm not sure
let me walk through a little bit of an example with the two of us. So for example, we can be in a positive space with one another and we are like, yes, we want to write more books and we want to speak and we want to plan a vacation with our kids and we want to do more ministry things. And then something happens and it'll be that same frustration that's happened over and over again. And I might go, I don't even want to do this. I'm really tired. I'm really tired. And so I've learned that I go, oh, when I'm really tired, I hear that. I was like, I just can't do all of this. I can't keep up. That's some of my negative space language. And so one of the things I've noticed about me is whenever I have the energy to do all the things and have fun and fit those things in, I usually can do more. But what I start letting go of is fun. So I will say, okay, I'm too busy. I've got all of these things on the calendar. I won't go to lunch with my friend. I won't, go and exercise. I'll just wake up really early. So then I'm a little bit more tired. And so I'll try to still do all the things, but it's like one little step in the negative space. So I'm still working on this. I'm trying to help give myself some more time, some more margin, so that I can be more fun. And I need fun in the relationship. He's better at the fun. And so sometimes I will resent him. I'm like, you do all the things that I need to do. Maybe if you were more like me, I wouldn't have to do all of the work. And again, that's my negative space talking. And so I get stuck in this place sometimes just for a few minutes and sometimes for a few days. But whenever I'm like ruminating on some of these negative things, there are a lot of the same things that I will then justify or say something is different in a positive space. I'm like, oh, he is different from me. And I love that about him, but I won't go to those places sometimes automatically when I get stuck in that space.
Would you say, Ashley, is negative space, is that something within us clamoring for attention too? So like my situation, I can feel this sense of wanting quietude and predictability and stability and all these things that are about to be disrupted. So, and I need to, as you've appropriately said, I need to make sure that I find ways to still attend to that within me. And if I don't, then I'm going to slip into a negative space.
Absolutely. And what sometimes happens is when you have an unmet expectation, you can slip into a negative space. And you have an expectation to get your needs met. And then when you don't communicate about it, maybe it was an uncommunicated expectation that you had.
Yeah.
Or you're angry and you'd like something to be different and you've only complained about it. You haven't asked for what you wanted, which are two very different things. And you find yourself in this negative space. Something I love it when Ashley teaches people to be curious. So if you're in that negative space, you can be curious. And just like you said a second ago, is this revealing something that is unresolved? Is this revealing something that I have a responsibility to have a conversation about? And if I would, I could relieve the tension I'm experiencing, and I would also be more emotionally available for my partner.
I love that. So be internally curious with myself and to be curious with my mate. Curiosity is going to take care of a lot of this stuff.
Well, and it takes some of the villain and victim mentality out of it as well.
Yeah.
If we know that we're on the same page ultimately and we want to have a stronger relationship, then we can look at some of the issues and be curious about it and say, I want to do better at this. I know when I do X, Y, and Z, it creates tension in our relationship. I'm sorry. What can I do better? And that's being curious about what could make an improvement.
And we found that the self-awareness that we get as we explore ourselves and how we might differ between a positive and negative space is really powerful. And it's even been powerful in our family. So before we do a worksheet with couples and individuals when we were doing coaching and counseling. And before we did that, we had a white piece of paper and we used it with our kiddos. And so we just drew at the top of the page, your positive space thinking. And then on the other side, negative space thinking. And then we did positive space behavior and negative space behavior. But especially with one of my kids, one of the things that was so helpful for him, whenever he would get upset, he would say, "You don't love me." And we would say, "Honey, we love you. We have to discipline you, but we love you," and it just, that never seems to help very much whenever a kid's upset. But
like that didn't fix it right away.
We knew that he doesn't always feel this way. And so one of the things we had him write down is, what's one of the things that you feel when you're in a negative space? And he wrote down that, like, I feel like my family doesn't love me. But in a positive space, he acknowledged that he believes that his family loves him. And so in a positive space, he said, "Oh, my family loves me, of course." And so whenever he wrote in his own handwriting that my family loves me, and then he sees on the other side of the page, my family doesn't love me, he can see really clearly that there's a lie present. And it's easier to see that that lie is present in that negative space. And so this has been helpful for him. It's also been helpful for me personally when I see, like, I sometimes think, I don't want to do this. This is too hard. And then I think, this is great. I love that we're making an impact and we're doing the hard things that we've said that we felt called to do. And so I do think the enemy comes to steal, kill, and destroy. And so whenever we get a little bit weak, he's going to try to prey upon us and make us feel like we can't do the things that we need to do. And so understanding that is powerful, but also whenever we see like I'm believing two different things, which one is true is helpful so that we can try to hold on to the truth. And again, we're not trying to just say, oh, just dismiss it. Oh, your family loves you. Stop saying that. We're like, well, what's the need underneath it?
There you go. Yeah. I love you promoting self-awareness too, and being aware of these different mindsets. Where are you right now? Oh, I'm in my negative space, or I'm in a,
yeah, absolutely. And what we found is when people don't do the work to get out of a negative space, they're more likely to leave. They're more likely to quit a job. They're more likely to get a divorce. They're more likely to emotionally disconnect, because there's something that we teach about that's called the leaving cycle. And if you stay in this negative space and you feel like you've lived there, you've built this house in this negative space in your mind, it doesn't feel very good. And a quick fix to a bad relationship is a new relationship. And people will go from place to place, dating to dating, unfortunately, marriage to marriage, looking for something good because it feels good in the beginning, because you don't have any unmet expectations yet. But if you don't deal with your unmet expectations in your negative space, you're more likely to leave. So resolving some of those things, dealing with what you need to deal with, having a conversation to do the work, and it is work, to get back to a positive space. If you've dwelled in a negative space for a long time, it can save relationships. It can save marriages. It can reduce turnover. It can make for better parenting relationships. It can make for better co-working relationships if you will do that work to address those things.
I have a saying that I tell the folks I'm working with: make the unspoken spoken. And that sounds like that's what, bringing things current, taking the responsibility. That was a powerful word, by the way. Responsibility. I mean, somebody smarter than me has said responsibility is response-ability. It's the ability to respond, and the importance that this is on you. You come on. You got to bring this forward. You got to show up and speak your needs and speak your expectations.
Absolutely.
So, if our listeners could take one thing away from this interview, what would you want it to be? So many good, encouraging tidbits. I love it all.
There is hope no matter what your situation. Likely when you get stuck in that negative space, that's whenever hope starts to diminish. But again, if you can get alone with the Lord, you can get people around you to pray with you out loud, name the things, write the things down, bring it out, and bring prayer around it, and you can find hope.
So have the conversation, do it. You're better off being vulnerable and feeling a little bit awkward and a little bit embarrassed than walking through it alone.
All right. Thank you so much for being here today, Chuck and Ashley. We love, this is really, really good stuff. Your insights and experiences are invaluable, and I'm sure our listeners have gained a lot from this conversation. Listeners, as always, if any of this resonates with you, please know that we are available to help. You can find resources and tools on our website at www.marriagerecoverycenter.com. To dive deeper into Chuck and Ashley's work and to connect with them further, make sure to visit chuckandashley.com. Love it. And if you've enjoyed today's show, it would mean the world to us if you would give us a 5-star rating. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel to stay updated on new episodes. Thanks for tuning in to Mad in Love, and we will chat with you again soon. Take care. God bless.